Just very briefly, my background, as you have heard, I was the founder, creator of Fidelio and Opera, now owned by Oracle. And after I sold my company some years ago, my parents convinced me to invest the money. I was the investor into my family property, Schloss Elmau. And I never wanted to be in the hotel business, neither with computers nor with anything else, but somehow I got stuck. So I invested the money, I fixed up the place, and then it burned down just after I had finished it. And 9 years ago, I rebuilt it from scratch and expanded it, and it's now 2 hotels in one, with 5 spas. It's about 162 rooms. One of the hotels has 47 suites, the other one has 115 rooms. We have 5 different spas for adults and families, we're separate. But the center of all of this is what you see here on the picture, is a concert hall. And when my grandfather built this in 1916, the music, the nature, the music, the get-together of the people, the connecting with the people was the central issue. He was a philosopher and best-selling author, writer. And when I once visited the Lanzerhof in Innsbruck, because the owner of the Lanzerhof is a regular guest at our hotel, and he had asked me when he saw the new architecture and everything I've done, I'm also kind of the architect, interior design, I'm the investor, I'm all in one, unfortunately, except the management. I'll leave it to people who can manage better than I. He wanted me to build or help him design the new Lanzerhof in Tegernsee. I said, I can't do it. But as I walked into his office, his partner, Mr. Wieser at the time, the guru of the Lanzerhof in Innsbruck, said, I know everything about you. I said, well, how do you know me? I don't know you. I've never been here. Well, look at my bookshelf, all the books of your grandfather. This is our foundation. Well, what was the foundation of my grandfather was freedom. Take a vacation from the ego. Go beyond your ego. So I didn't like, as a child, this kind of idea because I cherish freedom for the ego. So when I came, I changed it around and put the idea in the center, maximum. In your free time, when you time out, you want to be as free as possible. But I still kept the cultural tradition. So I changed the name. As you can see, it's called Luxury Spa Retreat and Cultural Hideaway. We do about 220 concerts each year. Almost, every second day is a concert. And it's the world-class stars in classical music, jazz, literature, poetry, and political debate. So when Angela Merkel picked Schloss Elmau for the G7, she gave the rationale. Why did she pick it? It's a beautiful location, very beautiful location, but also because of its cultural history and its political engagement. I'm a very political person, but I'm not talking politics today. So when I got in the situation where I had to rebuild from scratch, where I never wanted to be in the first place, 9 years ago, I felt, so what I'm going to do? How I'm going to do this? And I didn't have any, there were a few consultants, spa consultants coming, and they said, the latest trend is this. I said, there is the door. When I heard the word trend, I'm already passing out. Because one thing that I try to understand, coming from a background of philosophy, which I studied, and computer science, what are we trying to do here? And when I listen to all of you, we really all try to do to spend time in some way or the other. We all know it won't help. At the end of the day, we'll die. But nonetheless, there's no reason not to try. But the suspension of time has to do with the suspension of thinking. So in all the religions that we know, whether it's Christianity or Buddhism, let's take, for example, Buddhism. It's more commonly known, maybe, for everyone. They talk about the nirvana. The word nirvana means without discerning thought. So you have to reach beyond thought. Now, the problem with the spa industry is we are so much focused on the ego, we are so obsessed with self-optimization that the cage we live in becomes smaller and smaller, and the desperation grows. It's good for business because people have to come back again and again, and because they think maybe eventually we'll get beyond it, transcend it. But it's very hard. So, I've spent a lot of my time in India, and it's very, very hard, as you know, not to do anything and not to think. It's almost impossible. I've tried it for many years. It's a nightmare. I don't have the strength for it. So how I'm going to get there? Sitting in a cave in India in the Himalayas or whatever, you know? And so I understand that some people are capable of just doing nothing, which is the ultimate luxury. But I think it's only an ultimate luxury if you have all the possibilities to do everything. So if you go to an almond resort in Asia and there's nothing you can do, it's really not such a great luxury. Because, you know, you can stay for 2 days and you have to go to the next place to see something else, because it's hard to do nothing. And so in Elmau, I thought, okay, freedom requires alternatives. You have to have the alternative to do many things in order to be able to do nothing. Otherwise, it's too hard. Now, we offer all this, what you've been talking about, you know, to decelerate slowly for those people who can't stop right away in 1 second. You go swimming and yoga and tai chi and whatever, you name it. You know it all better than I do, and we do most of this. But there's one thing, at the end of the day, if you do all of this, if you want to clear your mind, release your emotions, obscure emotions, whatever, and maybe get space, you know, to go beyond yourself. What we needed in mankind always, since as long as we can think, is music, is literature, is poetry. That's the only way we can actually experience time suspended. Because the music that Beethoven composed 200 years ago, 100 years ago, is still the same today as it was 100, and it will be the same 500 years from now. So here is the only chance, and it's been the chance in religion and everything we've been doing in art, the only chance to experience time suspended. Some people, for example, there's a hotel in Cologne next to the Dome. They have a small spa in the basement. And I said, well, you know, the pool 5 meters and the sauna is very small. Why do you do this? He said, well, I need to have a spa. I said, well, you have the Dome next door. Why don't you open it up for your guests in the evening as a private tour? Just sit there for half an hour. This is more spa you can get than in 4 weeks being in a swimming pool. You don't need a spa. What you need is space for imagination where you can reach beyond this. So I think we have to be very careful that this industry of self-optimization doesn't lead to self-destruction, to desperation. And so people say, you know, now Elmau, they never thought about the music because it wasn't a hotel. It was a very spiritual, sort of remote kind of place. And now it's a very luxurious hotel, and lots of awards, and et cetera, and people look at it a little differently, say, well, we also like to add some music to our place. You know, it's the other way around. You will not succeed if you think this way. We don't do the music to fill the hotel. You know, I built the hotel to do the music. If you do it the other way around, you can do second, third class music, and that doesn't work. Because, you know, the demand, if you want to go beyond the thinking, it has to be people who try to reach beyond. It has to be the artists who try to reach beyond. It can't be this artist who can barely handle the instrument. So you need world-class musicians. And if you want to pay them, or you have to pay them because you want to make money by bringing them into your hotel, you are bankrupt the next day. Because they charge you so much you can't afford it. So for them it's important that you have the passion for music. You share the same passion as they do. So you may think about the purpose why you're doing what you're doing before you do something, in that sense. So I think for Elmau, this has worked out very well so far. We have, just to give you some numbers, because Susie always wants numbers, I've invested in the last 9 years about $100 million, a little more maybe. On a per square meter basis, nobody else has spent more money per square meter in Germany. Germany is not a destination where you would invest any money in the resort business because it's, as you know, it's pretty run down all over the place. It's backward. You've seen this fantastic architecture where we come from that David had shown to you. It really gone down the tube very much because, I don't know why, the mediocrity in there. So it's a lot of money invested. We do about something like 30 million euro, 30 whatever in dollars in revenue. We're very profitable from day one, surprisingly. We didn't expect this. Of course, the G7 was a great boost last year, but really the people who come to our place don't come because of the G7. It's word of mouth. We have very little marketing, but we do run almost like last year was above 80% occupancy. This year, because I added 40% capacity, we'll run maybe 75% occupancy. And we have a fairly large international clientele from America, from the UK, and it's growing. It's word of mouth about it, and it's become the place in the world for artists to go to a spa. There's about several thousand each year. They play to stay, you know. The spa has to be so spectacular that they don't charge you for it, that actually for them it's a treat to bring them there, whether it's authors or writers or politicians and musicians particularly. And they are the most demanding spa customers you can imagine. You heard it about David Large about Goethe. Now in our place, which is kind of unique, we also let them bring their children. But children and spa is an anathema theme, sort of. I think we were the first to say, actually, it enriches each other. Because if you go to a spa where there are no children at all, you might go to a rehab. It's not really very conducive for energy. There is no energy. A place without children has no hope. There is no hope. Why would you go there? Go in the grave. So children are essential, but you have to be able to get away from them. And they have to be able to get away from you as well. So you need lots of space to get away from each other. Very important. But also where you can meet. So we were lucky to have the space, and we have 65 or 70% of our entire space is public space. The other way around in most hotels. In Amman resorts, like 50-50. We do it different. And I think this is essential to have these contrasts together. Now the artists are very demanding. Every one of them uses the spa. Not every one of our guests goes to the concert. I think what is essential in all of this to be not dogmatic. For example, we do like 30 yoga retreats a year, and we have 2 times yoga a day. We do more yoga than probably most other people do. It's totally crazy, but we call it yoga without dogma. I wanted to have teachers that contradict each other. We have music, jazz, classical music, other music that contradict each other. We have debates where people contradict each other. I don't want homogeneity. So the symbol of this is our multicolored bathrobes. We are the only hotel in the world where people can choose the color of the bathrobe. And they love it. And the color doesn't match the design of the hotel. No corporate identity. Maximum individuality. This is what it's about. And so you don't really know who's doing what. And the artists, some of the artists, the German artists in particular, said, well, if not everybody in the hall goes to my concert, I don't have the energy to play. I'm very sorry, okay, I'm cannot do anything. Other artists ask me, so Dietmar, what's the difference between the new and old? I say, well, you play and I go for a swim. And he said, oh, I understand, I no longer play. I go to the room and order gourmet food. So it's the possibility to be able to do everything and not to be forced, because once you're forced, there's no freedom. So the underlying logic for us is freedom. And music and literature and poetry is all about freedom, individual freedom, the expression of individual freedom and creativity. Not necessarily you're going to be happy, as I said the other day, because I've never met a successful artist who is happy. Think about Beethoven. But they have something which is much more valuable than happiness. It's the hope to become happy. So leave it open. Leave space for imagination. Thank you very much.